Hi there, I'm Siobhan Logan, editor with Space Cat Press. Welcome to our Halloween treats and tricks. We've put together some of our spookiest reads for today's Spectral Festival. So today's juicy bones are all taken from our new forest-themed anthology, Bark and Bone. And you can see the deliciously dark cover design here with the artwork from Sally Barnett, which perfectly captures the haunting atmosphere of our forest. All of the stories and poems and non-fiction in this anthology are forest themed. And you can see this sense of something dark hidden under the ferns. And have a look as well at all of those woodland creatures staring back at us from under the trees. So this Bark and Bone anthology, the ebook edition, is just out now in time for Halloween, published the 27th of October. You can get it exclusively from our Space Cat Press website shop, and that's £4 for the ebook. And if you're wanting to get your hands on this fabulous artwork, the print edition, the paperback, will be out on the 25th of November. But let's dive in the Halloween spirit to the 10 spookiest reads from this anthology. So there was a lot to choose from here. In Bark and Bone, 33 writers are venturing into the woods in search of refuge, enchantment, and buried secrets. And very often they find that the forest turns out to be a place of mutation. We find a continual translation between the human and arboreal, with human bodies often being changed by the forest, as well as acting upon it. So you'll find travellers in these woods, mushroom pickers, witches, eco-activists, all stalk the undergrowth, alongside all kinds of creatures. And the trees too are sometimes spellbound, sometimes alien. We even have synthetic trees, but all of them call to the wilderness within us, the readers. So let's light our lamp and venture into the forest. And our opening piece definitely plays tricks on the reader. This is Grounding Exercise by Cormack, Baldwin. And it starts off reading rather like a meditation exercise. So we are calmly invited by the narrator to breathe in the sights and sounds and smells of this forest place. And once we are completely immersed in it, the tone shifts slightly to that of warning. You are of the same world as the soft rot beneath your feet. So the track through this forest takes an unexpected turn. It returns us to the dark earth in ways we perhaps never expected. So this proves a delicious introduction to the Bark and Bone anthology. And perhaps forewarned and forearmed, we're now ready for the trickery and hallucinations of bitter Karella's Toadstools. This is an extremely original story, a weirdly cyclical tale of illicit mushroom pickers who go into the forest, risking their lives and even sanity on behalf of a shady company. The narrator has a catalogue of all the different mushrooms and toadstools that they're picking and which ones to be wary of. One of the pieces that they're searching for is called God of the Forest. God of the Forest might be a mushroom or a myth or a monster lurking in the labyrinth of the forest. But as with all things in the forest, it holds its secrets close. So this is really a quite spellbinding and trippy tale that moves in circles through the forest by bitter Karella. And let's have a treat now. So as a child, I really loved stories of witches, loved to be the witch in our childhood games. And here I am in this picture in my Halloween outfit from a few years ago with my witch hat and all the rest of it, just living my best life. So I was delighted to see Shelley Jones's story, The Iron Baba, in our submission pile. And this deftly transplants the East European witch into quite an original eco-fable. So in this story, Baba the witch encounters a grown-up Gretel from the story Hansel and Gretel. But this Gretel now earns her living as a logger, cutting down trees, and yet she's never forgotten the dangerous events of her childhood in the woods. So all of that stays with her. And I think this story just beautifully blends all the witchiness of our ancient forest tales with a nod to our present predicament and perhaps a foreshadowing of our future as well. So really original, wonderful, witchy forest tale. But let's stumble straight into a darker story with Max Turner's The Scream That Became a Howl. That fabulous title, which certainly promises us something terrifying in the woods, but also hints at the metamorphosis that lies at its heart. So Turner has really cunningly blended all those fantasy tropes about lycanthropy with a really inventive account of gendered violence and transitioning across the centuries. So it's quite an episodic story. It takes us through a series of women who venture into the woods and the changes that they find there. Definitely one of our broken bodies strand in the anthology, so don't be misled by that cute picture of the dog in the woods there. All of these characters will be needing the knit bone leaves that you'll find on the front cover of our anthology. We also have a series of stories and poems about hunters and the hunted. And perhaps one of the most chilling of these is Be Still, Iron Heart. So the threat of bloodshed hangs heavy in the woods. And in this story by Lyndsey Croal, a group of frightened villagers have hired out an assassin to kill the ghoulish green man that lurks in their local woods and that casts a curse upon the village. So our hunter, our would-be assassin, ventures in to find the green man, and it turns out to be quite a life-changing and death-dealing encounter. But who is going to win out in this struggle? If we peer into the shadows of the trees on our front cover, we'll find various creatures staring back at us, and one of them is this bear. It may well be the bear from Holly Schofield's disturbing flash fiction piece, Bear #178, which is a starving, genetically modified bear. And this bear is surrounded by campers in the woods, it's monitored by scientists, and it's really had enough. It decides that there's only one way to avoid humans. And that ending of the story is really both profoundly creepy and heartbreaking. And staying with bears, we have one that is more of a treat. As soon as we saw the title of Kate Boy's poem, we were really drawn in. To all travellers who must pass a night in the forest of vampire bears. Vampire bears. So rather than a genetically modified bear, it's a blood-sucking Ursus vampirus who stalks a human hunter. So there's some lovely play here with images of constellations as well as images of hunting. And this narrative poem is full of twisty turns, sleepless hours and wry humour, which lighten the mood somewhat. Our next piece is arguably both a trick and a treat, because it blends some gorgeous writing and fairy tale imagery with some really dark themes. So LP Melling's story, The Red Princess Who Was Hidden Underground, takes us into the historical period of the Second World War, into the Black Forest. And indeed it's true that during the Second World War, various Jewish communities and others found refuge from the Nazis in the forests of Eastern Europe. So here we have a blending of historical fiction, fairy tale and horror as a Nazi officer pursues a Jewish family. And the Red Princess of the title sees some terrible things happen in the woods, but she also finds solace in her father's folklore during these dangerous times. So this is a story that's perhaps equally black-hearted and enchanting. Our next story, One Set of Footsteps by Julia LaFond, plays quite a few tricks on the reader. It reads rather like a crime story, but as if we're following the detective through the woods, piecing together the clues. So we have this terse narrative voice that leads us, and we're tracking the marks left by a man who evidently was fleeing for his life through the trees. So as it gets going and as we piece the clues together, we are soon running full pelt into what is really quite an original, vivid and breathtaking narrative. And we keep going full of dread as to what exactly we're going to find at the end of the trail. And we'll close our Halloween pick and mix with one of the most chilling stories in the anthology. And again, another wonderfully original piece. It's written very much as a recipe for a spell to summon the Bone Fae. So we have another wonderful narrative voice with all these disturbing instructions, but also world-weary warnings. And in this story, mother love proves a dangerous force. We have a grieving parent who is determined to summon the Bone Fae. And the narrator warns us, some things are not meant to be called. So we really don't want to ask quite what spell this Fae is going to perform or what the price will be that is exacted. There's always a price. But very chilling and original story about the Bone Fae. But with 33 pieces altogether, Bark and Bone is our biggest anthology yet, and absolutely stacked with different forest-themed stories, poems and creative non-fiction. And lots of different genres, so alongside fairy tales, horror, weird fiction, you'll also find eco-fables, which really evoke the kind of dysfunctional relationship that we currently have with nature. And we've also unearthed a powerful LGBTQ strand in the anthology. There's some really interesting pieces there, including a really wonderful memoir about transitioning called Rewild Me by Charlie Winter. So that's very much recommended by us. And alongside that, there's a clutch of quite inventive and quite thrilling science fiction, which features perhaps off-world forests, or even we have a synthetic forest as well, forest on the moon, a forest in the oceans of Europa, and so on. Some really interesting science fiction playing with the theme of forests. So lots of things to dip into there, something for everybody. Which will you read first? Well, of course, you need to get your hands on a copy of Bark and Bone to really enjoy those stories. So, as I mentioned, the ebook is already available from our website shop at Space Cat Press, and the print edition, the paperback, will be out for the end of November, the 25th of November, so look out for that as well. And if you've been intrigued by some of the stories we've introduced today, do have a listen to some of the fabulous author readings that you can find on our Space Cat YouTube channel, and there are links with pages about all of the authors on our website as well, so lots of things to explore there. But thank you for joining us, and have a really spooktacular Halloween yourselves.